Welcome back to It Was Never a Face Cards. Today we're going to be talking about some actual positivity in the hobby regarding Prismatic. We're going to have a few success stories. We're going to share just a little bit of positivity with all the negativity out there. I just have to spread some love. So we got some good things going on. We also have some more data on pull rates, and then we're going to talk about some other cards and a few sealed products. But I did want to share that I did have a little bit of success from my LGS, my local game store. I was able to, it was later in the day, before I was getting hosed everywhere I went, wasn't able to pick up anything anywhere. My local game store didn't open till 1 p.m. and they did a great job. They were obviously above MSRP, but definitely below market. And I thought it was, honestly, I thought it was fair. And yeah, so I was able to pick up, they limited one item per person. So like one ETB, you could get one ETB, one binder collection, one poster collection, and one of the 3-pack blisters. And so everyone was able to get stuff. But yeah, it was late in the day. It was kind of weird. But we've seen tons of people in the comment section in the Discord pulling. We saw the Umbreon pulls. We saw a God pack in the Discord. We saw. I heard some stories about grandmas being able to get some for their kids. So I try to focus on the positive. It's not all just massive hoarding and scalping and all of this crazy stuff. There is a lot of positivity out there right now, and to play off of some of that, Wookiee Slayer in the Discord did pull a God pack. I wanted to give him a shout out in the video. What a legend. You can see right here, he got the real God pack that you want with all the evolutions. Absolutely insane. So congrats. Yeah, and we saw multiple other Umbreons being pulled in the Discord as well. So it's nice for people. People are ripping it. People are pulling the cards. So that is nice to see. I'm still a little too scared with what's going on right now. I don't think I'm going to be opening my ETB here, but also my Pokemon Center ETB, it's on its way, but like it said the label got messed up, so I don't know. It was supposed to be delivered yesterday. I'm trying to stay positive around that one as well, but there's a chance it might not make it. I don't know what would happen if it doesn't make it. So anyways, yeah, let me know in the comments if you guys have had that issue with it said like label couldn't be scanned. It was label messed up and they were going to create a new one. I don't know. We'll see. But before we get to the pull rates, I do think we need to talk about the. I know I do apologize. It's a lot of Evolving Skies and Prismatic right now, but I do think this is important to talk about right now. The Moonbreon is moving on TCG Player right now in Raw. Everything is being pushed up right now. You can see most recent sales right here. 1990. We're gonna round up for the sake of the argument and call this $2,000 for a raw near mint copy. If you look at lowest listed, this is kind of why I say that. You're at 2,000, and then 2,250 from Starred Sellers, and then after that 2,500. There are only 9 copies available on TCG Player right now. So you have the new Umbreon, obviously driving up price. We've seen a lot around 2K raw sold on eBay. So yeah, things are looking crazy for Evolving Skies. We're also seeing the Japanese side move. We don't need to go too in depth in this chart, but when you put it in perspective of the 1 year, 195% growth. A year ago, this was a $500 card. So yeah, went up to almost 1,000, came back down to 800, and now you guys know where we are. But just wild that it's getting to this point. I kind of figured with pull rates being tough in Prismatic, which we have numbers, a little more solid numbers. That this was a possibility that this was going to happen. So the new Umbreon doing things and the Moonbreon taking off. We also have the Japanese side starting to move. This is something that we've talked about with English being so expensive and hard to get. You couple that with difficult pull rates. People are going to go to the Japanese side, and it makes sense. And now we are seeing this Umbreon move up to around 500 on the last solds. Some a little below. Right before down here, we do have some 500 sales. Then pretty consistent 475 and 460 here on the Umbreon. Lowest listed does reflect that 460, 470. So almost to 500. It might take a few more sales to get there, but it does make sense if people cannot afford the English copy. The Japanese copy honestly looks better most of the time for most cards. I think this is one of those cases where it does. I haven't seen it in person yet, but I do know someone who has one. Hopefully I'll be seeing that in person at some point because I don't have this card. But yeah, so the Japanese side's going to continue to run the boxes on all the singles. I mean, we're also seeing the V continue to run from Evolving Skies. I mean, that makes sense, right? It's just the next product down the line, right? The rising tide is raising all ships right now in this insane market. But with this guy, this is what's interesting. But once again, only 11 copies available. Last sold 275. Before that, it was in the 200s. We did have a few 300s down here, but it was like mid to low 200s. Now you're seeing lowest listed $300 for the regular Umbreon V, and then after that you got a few sales, and then you're at 500. So not many copies available on TCG Player for this card right now, which is, yeah, absolutely wild. When you do this chart too, you're going to see a similar thing. A year ago it was sub 100, and now we're potentially seeing, you know, 3 possibly bumping up to 500. We'll see. I think it's going to take a minute for this. I think more sellers are going to come in and list before we get to 500, but something to keep an eye on as well. And on the Japanese side, sorry, we're bouncing back and forth, but we are seeing not just the Umbreon move on the Japanese side right now. So this chart, obviously, the 1 month can only go back so far. These cards were falling. If we zoom out a little bit, you can see, right, pre-release prices are normally high, especially on the Japanese side. It's a little bit more predictable like the English market used to be. And it just slowly came down to a bottom of 93 was the bottom, right? Once again, though, we're seeing low quantity available on TCG. 12 copies available. You see a lot of people bought right here the other day on the 17th. Makes sense. That was yesterday, release day. So with the English side, you know, there's people are making plays on the Japanese side. So, you know, from 93 to 150 with most recent sold being 160. Before that, very consistent 150s down the board. The lowest listed right now is 160. You go 160, 170, and then you're in the 200s. So I think what really is going to happen with this, all of these, is the English price is pretty much going to dictate the Japanese price for the most part, with some exceptions, just because that's just the way it's going to work, right? English prices being very expensive, very inflated, it pushes people to Japanese. It's going to be cheaper, obviously, but to what percentage? Also, Japanese moving forward, they have been, if you're newer, the Japanese side, they are not afraid to print sets into the ground. We saw it with 151. We've seen it with other sets as well, but they will print as much Trastal as needed. And so the supply will continue to increase on the Japanese side, so that will play a factor as well. So if you're looking at picking up a Japanese card, in theory, the Japanese side should continue printing, right? So supply should continue to enter the market, but the demand that we're seeing here on the English, on the US side, is unprecedented. So, you know, all of that plays a factor. You try to get into all that. We're also seeing a big jump on the Espeon. This card we pulled on the channel, beautiful card. You know, I kind of like, I get the Sylveon being here at the second most expensive of the regular ones, but you know, I put this as second in my opinion. I like the Espeon. But this card was interesting. Upon release, it was 67, went up to 70, and then it was doing the same thing as all the other ones. It came down to a low of 62, and now we're seeing 90, about 100 to 90, right? Most recent sales. We do have 105, 90s, then some hundreds down here, and pretty much mid 90s, right? Also, same thing, you're going to see the most sales on Prismatic release day. January 17th was the most. Lowest listed is pretty much 100. I'm just going to round up. So now a $100 card, and slowly creeping up after we get a few more sales on the Espeon. Now, we've talked about pull rates in the past, but we have some information from TCG Player. We also have some information from Danny Phantom, who you know, is a great content creator, opens a lot of packs, provides very good data. So we'll touch on his as well. The TCG side is a little low, right? And their numbers are actually looking pretty good. So there could be some batching issues happening, because what we were seeing early on does not reflect this. Maybe, you know, maybe it's starting to even out, and just like we had tougher batches off to start, and I don't know. I do not know, but 1,200 packs that they opened, they're showing for any SIR actually a little lower, 1 out of 45 packs. So when you do the math, out of all the SIRs for a specific SIR, that goes around 1 in 1440, which would make the Umbreon easier to pull than the Moonbreon from Evolving Skies, because that was pretty much around 1 out of 2,000 packs roughly. So, right, you got hyper rares 1 out of 180, specific hyper rare 1 out of 900, so that's still difficult to pull. Master Ball ended up being easier than we thought. 1 out of 20, specific Master Ball, though, a lot harder. 1 out of 1362. Ultra rares are 1 out of 13. 1 out of 161 for specific ultra rare. Ace specs here. And then the Pokeballs are actually 1 out of 3. And specific Pokeball, due to the number, is 1 out of 300, right? So you can see this is what TCG Player had. Now, these numbers are a little different. We're going to focus on this one right here, 1440. Now, when we jump over to Danny Phantom, this is his data here. You can see he opened a lot more, 2,700 packs. And he has the specific SIR a little bit higher. You're seeing just under 1 out of 1,700, which is still better than what I had speculated out of like the 1 out of 1,900, 1 out of 2,000, with 1 out of 53 for the SIRs, because I was pegging it more. I did say between 1 out of 50 and 1 out of 60, but leaning towards the 1 out of 60 because that kind of matched up with Paldean Fates. So 2,700 packs, versus 1,200 packs over here. So there is a difference there. So yeah, 1 out of 53, 1 out of 1,700 essentially. His full art trainers, 1 out of 16 or 1 out of 192. Master Balls, he has 1 out of 19. And specific card, 1 out of 1,200, right? So and the hyper rare, 1 out of 152 and 1 out of 760. So there is a little bit of discrepancies going on. I do believe also that Danny Phantom is going for a master set and giving it away. I think he usually always gives away a master set. So, I mean, that is amazing. Good for him. So go, if you haven't, I don't know how you hadn't seen his content. Go check out his content if you haven't. But yeah, so huge props to Danny Phantom for getting this information out. I do think that, this does change the game a little. Maybe it's not quite as difficult as we thought. More information rolling in would be very helpful, I do think. We're also going to just touch on a few other cards that are kind of moving right now. We got some SV stuff, and then we got some Fusion Strike towards the end, so make sure you stay tuned for that. But I wanted to talk about this Riolu card. This is a SV base card, and this guy's shooting up a lot right now. 3 months ago, this was an $8 card, and now we're seeing him around 25, 27, with the most recent sales, too, actually being at $45 for the Riolu. Like I said, we are in the rise of the illustration rare right now. Lowest listeds are not in the $40 range. We got 30, 31, 32. So after that few sales, it does jump back up to 45. There's 47 copies available, so we'll see where this one ends up. But a lot of these like undervalued illustration rares, just they sat for so long, and then they're shooting up recently. It's a nice artwork, fun card. We'll see where it ends up. Obviously, like once you start looking a little deeper at this card and you see the scratch marks on the wall, you got the pictures on the background, the torn up pillow, like it is kind of a funny card. So, I like these illustration rares that are kind of silly like this, right? And they tell a little bit of a story. His weights are all bent. He's been raging. But 320% on the year, just for like the low, 1 year low was around $5. It did shoot up a little bit around June, July, up to 10, and then came back down a little. So yeah, around $30 is a pretty massive jump for this card. We'll see if it's able to hold. Just kind of one of those cards where, is this, not that this, once again, not that this is not a nice card. I like this card, but can it hold around $30? Something. So yeah, if you have this card in your collection, just check it out. It is going up in value. We are seeing the SV base booster boxes continue to rise. Looks like they're maybe stagnating around the $140 mark, which, isn't something that I feel like is happening a lot in the market. Like, wait, product can stagnate? Like, it seems like everything just goes up. But, if we zoom out a little closer here, you can see it technically went down a little, 145 down to 143. We got to clear this. I did not have this on. So, very consistent sales right here, though. There's a few outliers, a 129 and 150. But before that, 143, 144, super consistent on the SV base booster box. Lowest listed is going to reflect that, right? So that's nice to see. A year ago, these were cheap. These were the cheap of all the boxes, in the low to mid 80s. So once again, I love SV base. I really do. I thought it kicked off the era nice with some really nice artwork. So it's nice to see it getting some love again. We also have now on the PC ETB side of SV base, things are a little spicier. You can see 3 months ago, sub 100. Now we're at, 150 for PC ETBs, but most recent sales eclipsing those numbers by quite a bit. The market price is not accurately reflected here, I don't think. Now, you can see the sales are kind of spaced out a little bit. Like we're in December already right here. We got $200 sales, 213, 190, 170, so it's a little bit all over the place. Lowest listed, 176, does match the most recent sale, but above market. After that, a few sales and we're in the $200 mark for this. Obviously, stamped promos are driving these sales. The exclusivity on those doing really well. $70 for a long time, which was barely above MSRP of 60. And yeah, so it's been a slow climb for these, and then boom, obviously rapid growth. But PC ETBs proving, especially for the early sets, for the most part, proving that the PC ETBs were the better investment over the booster boxes. Booster boxes, you know, would have to go to, even if you got in at, we'll call this just for a round number, 80. If you got this at 80, you'd have to go to 160, you know, to double, versus back here. Well, if you got these at release, we'll say too, which is lower than this. If you got them at 60, 120, you're already doubled. So obviously, you know, PC ETBs continuing to dominate the space. I got to talk about my Gardevoir again just for a second. It is, you know, once again, things aren't just always going up. You see the little dips along the way. The Gardevoirs come down just a little, from 52 to 50, right? Last sold's 50, 52, some 40s, 51. Anyways, I just like this card a lot. So I just wanted to, you can see it a little bit better on the 1 month when you zoom in, right? Lowest listed, it looks like it may be coming down. Lowest listeds are in the 45s, right? 88 copies available. SV base had pretty generous pull rates. If you weren't around, didn't rip any SV base, yeah, you were getting pretty much one SIR per box, per booster box, sometimes two. So, and I think it was, I want to say one SIR guaranteed per booster box. It was really nice. It was super fun to open. So yeah, I like that. But back to something a little bit more serious. We're seeing some, oh, man, the Gengar VMAX continuing to see some pretty massive moves. And you're going to see, just like some of the Evolving Skies stuff we just talked about, 13 copies available. Very low quantity available on TCG Player right now. 3 months ago, this was $300. Now we're seeing on the most recent sale, you know, there is a $500 sale here that is lower. But before that, I mean, we're seeing $720, $750, $700, $680. Then it goes down into the $550s, but then we're back up to $725, $670, and then there's an $800 sale down here as well, right? So lowest listed, this is where it starts to get interesting. 830. I mean, it's already been interesting, obviously, but I mean, when you're approaching 830, and then you eat up a few more sales, and you're at 1,000 raw for the Gengar. I mean, and then you can see after that it goes up a little. We're seeing a 1,500 listed here. Once again, just because this is listed doesn't mean it's necessarily going to sell for that, right? People might come and see this price increase and they'll list lower, and then it's just a battle down. But you know, in this market, things have kind of proven that to be a little different. So we could potentially see the Gengar VMAX go to $1,000 raw. We need a little bit more time for that to happen. A few more sales. If the quantity stays low, I could see that happening. But also consider, you know, you could jump over to eBay and you know, see what the prices are there. We'll see what lowest listed is. We'll pull that up. Actually, we'll do that in a second. But PSA 10 sales, we'll touch on that. When you start to compare a raw copy at 830 and you see a PSA 10 at 1,400, I know that is high, but comparatively, this almost seems like if you can afford it, this would be more of the deal. And actually, we can see a raw sale right here, so we don't really have to pull it up. eBay is cheaper right now, at least off of this last sale. They're saying near mint likely a PSA 10, but this was sold yesterday, 610. And before that, you know, you got pretty much 13, 14, 16, and 1500s in a PSA 10 copy. Now, another thing that is maybe holding off, leveling off, is the Fusion Strike booster box. You can see right here, we'll zoom in on the 1 month so we can see it a little bit, right? So it's kind of just like the market was like 500 is just too much, right? So 470, 480, pretty consistent in here. Last solds, I mean, you do have a 520, right? And 505, but before that, 460, 450, 470. So it looks like, this explosive growth from 300. The market was like, whoa, pump the brakes just a minute, right? So leveling off point, this is reflected in the lowest listed. You get a few down, it starts to go up a little bit more. So as like when it comes to this box, like if you're talking, I kind of talk like evolving, fusion, LO, Lost Origin. With those three specifically, even with where we're at, like leveling off, I do think that there is going to be room for these to run. Now, that doesn't mean that we can't see a regression off of this insane price increase. Prices could come down for a while, but I think it's only Evolving Skies at this point is going to hit 2000 this year easily if things continue to go, possibly 22, 2500 maybe, even if the bull market continues with this strength. And that's going to bring Fusion Strike up, that's going to bring Lost Origin up, and those boxes are going to get to the $600, $700, $800 mark at some point. It just kind of seems like an inevitability given the strength of the market. So I do believe that there's still a lot of good Sword and Shield booster boxes to purchase with room, and they're very high entry points, and I get that. But the reality of it is that it just with the market, that's where it's at. So that's gonna do it for this one, guys. If you're 21 minutes in and you're not already subscribed, obviously enjoyed the content, so do yourself a favor, do me a favor, hit the subscribe button. I would greatly appreciate it. I'll catch you guys in the next one, and remember, it was never a phase.